Welcome. You are listening to Caregiving Secrets with Deborah Greenhut. If you are a family caregiver or expect to be one, and you want to maintain your well-being while caring, then you are in the right place. We need to invent and reinvent family care, and together we're going to do it. My big idea is rational caregiving, and my motto is, let your brain lead your heart. Caregiving Secrets, because friends don't let friends be caregivers alone. Let's do this. Welcome, everybody. I have a special guest here today who I'm going to have introduce herself in just a moment. And today the topic we're going to be addressing is sleep. If you're a caregiver, I bet that word doesn't cross your path as often as you would like. Most of us become sleep deprived pretty easily. So I was curious, just how, Lucinda, do we make that happen? Could you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about what your research has been about, Lucinda Sykes?
Yeah, thank you, Deborah. I'm very glad to be here. This topic and your audience more broadly is very close to my heart. And what I hope to do for you is to really look at the problem of sleeping pills. Now, my background is that I practiced medicine for 40 years in Toronto, Canada. In the last 23 years, of my professional life, I was directing a clinic called Meditation for Health. I was teaching programs of mindfulness-based stress reduction to patients who'd been referred to the clinic because they had all manner of medical conditions that are worsened by the stress reaction. So that's what I was doing. And then COVID came and I couldn't teach the groups anymore. I decided it was high time to retire anyway. And now I'm devoting my work. I continue to work. I'm devoting my work to helping older women who are having a hard time sleeping. And my particular interest is the dangers of sleeping pills, because the medical profession overprescribes sleeping pills. And what I hope to do for your audience is to look at all the research that shows the dangers of sleeping pills so that your audience feels more equipped to make sensible decisions to help themselves. So often we're so devoted to other people that we maybe make a snap decision and in the end we end up harming ourselves, which is no good for anyone.
Yeah, I imagine not only is sleep the problem, but also that people's needs are often discounted because doctors are busy and they have to
Oh,
make a decision quickly. So prescribing is easier
it's easier.
than counseling there or thinking about alternatives to a pill. So one of the questions I have for you is, how do I know as a caregiver if I'm not getting enough sleep? Let's start with the basic question there. How do I know that I'm not getting enough sleep?
Well, that's a very interesting question. The sleep scientists would advise you to notice, are you sleepy during the day? So it's more than just being tired. It's about you tend to fall asleep. That means you have not been getting enough sleep. As well, you could kind of keep a running tally of the hours of sleep that you're getting. And ideally, we want 7 hours, 7 to 8 hours. That's ideal. But maybe nights go by, we don't get the ideal, but overall, we like to be getting 7 to 8 hours. You could also monitor how you are in the morning. Are you refreshed? Yeah, you're waking up, you want to be able to be refreshed. That would be a way to approach, am I getting enough sleep? You can measure the time and you can just see, am I getting sleepy during the day?
It's interesting because I think it's hard for caregivers to say to themselves, well, I'll just try to sleep eight hours tonight, or I'll try to get at least seven, maybe 6.5, because
Yeah,
something often happens during the
it
night. If
does.
you're caring for a spouse, especially, you don't really have relief typically during the night. And
Yes.
hard to, well, worries are one thing I know. What are some of the reasons that women over 50 don't sleep well?
Well, one may be even something biological. A wonderful paper I read recently came out of New Zealand, and interviews with Maori elders. And these older Maori folks found they weren't sleeping as much, but it didn't bother them. They said, well, that's just how it is. It's fine. I don't need as much sleep. It wasn't a big deal. Whereas the Europeans, they thought there was something wrong. They were going to go to the doctor. So it may be that this is something our species does, is we sleep a little, shorter time when we're older. But these are very general tendencies. There's lots of room for individual variation. And there are as well personal habits, lifestyle habits that worsen our sleep. And as you're outlining, of course, the demands of caregiving can certainly interrupt our sleep. As well, personal habits these days sometimes can include staying up late, scrolling through Facebook, or watching Netflix. We call it sleep procrastination. It's, as the scientists are saying, it's kind of an epidemic in the modern world. People stay up late past their bedtime, in part because, gosh, it's such a relief. So-and-so is sleeping right now. I get to stay up and watch whatever I like to watch. And then in the end, we don't get the sleep we need. Think of how you care for the children. You give your child a bedtime and you want her to go to bed and get some sleep. And you want to show yourself the same respect, not just because that sounds good, but rather the research shows you get better health outcomes. The cardiologists even tell us that it is a stress for your heart if you have irregular hours. It is much better for your heart's health and your overall health to go to bed at the same time each day and to awaken at more or less the same time too. The body likes regularity, if that's possible, of course.
Yeah, I've found that sometimes some parts of the year I need naps. It doesn't matter if I sleep 10 hours, I might need a nap. And I think that's okay. I get worried about myself if I'm doing the doom scrolling and the things you mentioned instead of procrastinating, in other words. And nap, that's not the right way to look at it, I think.
Fantastic. That's naps are a controversial question. In the sleep science world, there's a lot of different opinions. But in a nutshell, the truth is that the sleep you get in a nap is not the deep, fulfilling sleep that you get in a nighttime sleep. But there are cultures where that is the tradition, in fact. But crucially, usually you don't want it to be longer than maybe 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes max, but you don't want to enter into deep sleep and then wake up. Right. That's going to be disruptive for the later sleep. And further, it's not the full, rich sleep that we get at nighttime.
Yeah, my mom was a nurse and she always talked about the 15-minute nap that she'd been taught to take with her feet up. And she said somehow she would always wake up in 15 minutes and feel restored. They just trained them so well with it. So that was a positive side, but it's not 15 minutes. So I do.
If you can do that and then sleep at night, there's no problem at all with that.
Yeah. So whether you're working or not, caregiving or not, you need to look into these.
That could be a solution,
of handling yourself. Now, we do want to get to the sticky subject, though, sleeping pills. They can help. I understand they can be helpful to people, but you've opened my eyes to there being a real lurking problem here, particularly for women. So could you talk about that now, please?
Yeah, and let me stay entirely in the science so that this doesn't seem to be Lucinda's personal opinion. As far back as 1979, we began to get evidence that people taking sleeping pills were not living as long. And the evidence really started to come home to roost, so to speak, in 2012, when we had the first of some very fine research studies. So this one I have in mind is by the great Daniel Kripke. What Dr. Kripke did, he had access to the electronic medical records of a large integrated health system in the United States. I think they were located in Western Pennsylvania. And Dr. Kripke had access to these medical records. He selected 10,000 patients who were all taking sleeping pills. They had been prescribed sleeping pills. And this is all electronic. So it's just looking at the numbers. And then he selected 20,000 patients who were not taking sleeping pills, but they were otherwise very similar to the 10,000 who were taking sleeping pills. So roughly the same age, the same weight, they were the same history of smoking and drinking and so on. So all the other health parameters were very similar, but the one group was not taking sleeping pills and the other group was. What he discovered is shocking to me and probably shocked him too. He discovered as they followed the medical records over a 2.5-year span, that the people who were taking sleeping pills had about 3 times the death rate of the people who were not. And the more sleeping pills they were taking, the higher that death rate. And the patients who were taking the most sleeping pills in that upper, as they call them, tertile, the group that were taking the most sleeping pills, they had a 35% increase in their cancer rate. This is shocking. It's shocking. And you might seem like, well, I can't believe that. But then studies have confirmed this again and again. 2 years after Dr. Kripke published this pivotal study, another study came out of Great Britain based on the medical records of 270 general practices throughout the British Isles. And the researchers looked at, again, who's taking sleeping pills, and let's contrast that with the group who are not. And this is, again, done with the medical records. And they determined in their studies that the death rate was at least twice as much amongst those who were taking sleeping pills. And the study was differently designed, but the evidence, again, was, a much higher death rate amongst those who were taking sleeping pills. 2 years after that, a review study was done at the Australian Psychiatry Journal. And the researchers reviewed, as I recall, was it 20,000 research papers? I'd have to look it up. And they determined the same conclusion, that people who were taking sleeping pills had a higher death rate. And it was only, was it 2 years ago? Again, we see those research, and let me tell you the numbers on this. It shocks me, but this is credible science, published in mainstream medical journals by, credible scientists. What to have for you here, that the people who were taking sleeping pills in this study, they were all sleeping 7 to 8 hours, and one set of statistics. These are thousands of people enrolled in the Taiwan health system. The group that were taking sleeping pills, the women had a life expectancy which was more than 5 years shorter than the women who were not taking sleeping pills.
Wow.
It's astonishing.
That is astonishing. I mean, you think about all the perils that come to caregivers, all the stresses and so on, and now we have to think about which medications we're taking.
Yeah, because Deborah, you see, sleeping pills do not induce natural sleep. They are a misnomer. We should not be calling them sleeping pills, and indeed the physicians don't call them sleeping pills. They call them sedative hypnotics. The emphasis is the word sedation. Mm-hmm. A sedated brain is not a sleeping brain.
Right.
While we are sleeping in natural sleep, the brain is very busy. It should be busy. It's at some points in the night, the brain is as metabolically active as when you are awake. Now, it doesn't mean you're, thinking, you're asleep, but your brain is active. It is cleansing itself. It is boosting your immune system. It is resting the cardiovascular system. It is organizing your memories. It is fostering creative thinking. That's why you wake up in the morning with fresh ideas and a new outlook. All of that is happening because your brain is active. It is cycling through the night in a series of unique brain states. But if you sedate your brain with these chemicals, you impair its capacity to be active. One sleep scientist says that these chemicals, these sedatives, actually are shutting down the brain. They slow brain activity, they shut it down. So that is the fundamental misunderstanding that I hope I can communicate to your audience. Sleeping pills are not an alternative to sleep. They are a sedative. On occasion, we need a sedative for a couple of days, but by no means do not think of them as a remedy for the chronic sleep problems you're having. Further, if you do take sleeping pills for even a couple of weeks, you run the risk now that your subsequent sleep will be worse. There's something we call rebound insomnia. You use sleeping pills for a couple of weeks, and then, by gosh, your insomnia is worse. And again, the poor people misunderstand, and they think, oh, that just means I need more sleeping pills.
Yeah, sometimes more seems to be better. What should you say to your physician if that's the first answer you get when you say I'm not sleeping, if the pill is the automatic thing? What kind of questions?
Well, then, you know, ladies and gentlemen, I am a physician. I'm retired from medical practice, but you can trust me. I am a physician, and I'm very interested in the research. This research that I'm providing you today, I can give you the names of the research papers. And in fact, you don't even need to write to me. You can even go to my blog site. I have I guess I've got 10 blogs there now that review this research, and many of the research papers are listed there at the site. You can point these papers out to your physician, and you can ask, "Doctor, what's this about anyway? Why am I taking these pills? They predispose me to dementia," because that's the one I didn't even get to for you, Deborah. People who take sleeping pills, again, numerous studies now showing this, are more likely to develop Alzheimer's disease. In fact, double the risk. And do we have the time? I'll tell you something quite exciting.
Absolutely.
Just this past week, research has been released in the prestigious journal Cell, which shows us that Ambien, Zolpidem, one of the first and still very popular sleeping pills, actively suppresses the brain's capacity to cleanse itself. The research evidence is you take this pill, your brain can't clean itself. Are we surprised that then if you keep taking this pill, you're going to be more prone to dementia? It's not surprising.
No, seems like, as they say, a no-brainer.
Yes, it's not an alternative.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like, Lucinda, I can't sleep. I think I have to take a sleeping pill. Well, that's not the case. The sleeping pill is not an alternative. There are other ways to help yourself sleep. And, you know, by the way, if you have a tough night, you didn't get much sleep, if you kind of ride with it and then give yourself a chance, the next night, you're much more likely to get some sleep because the body wants to sleep. If you give it a chance, you'll get the sleep the next night.
So the idea of having a sleep routine where you relax yourself instead of worrying about Facebook or worrying about other social media is a really good one, because it may obviate the need for a sleep aid of some sort and thereby prevent you from having more serious brain consequences.
Oh, bless me. I entirely agree. And please check out my little Happy Sleep Secrets. It's a PDF with some very practical suggestions about the regular sleep times and light and physical activity and so on, which are the foundation for good sleep. There's other strategies too, but that's a good start.
This is just wonderful. And I'm sorry our time is so short today.
Yes.
There's plenty more we could talk about, but you've given us a great introduction to the importance of sleep and how to make sure that you can actually have it, and preferably without the medication, because that's when you get the best sleep. So
I wouldn't even consider the medication. In fact, it is not an alternative. The pharmaceutical industry has encouraged us to think of it as an option, but the science shows us it is not an option.
Well, let's hope that science prevails as in the coming years.
Yes.
We're looking forward to, because
Well, that's why I'm offering just the research. It's not my personal opinion. You can find the research at lucindaresearch.com. That'll take you to the 10 blogs that I've got listing the research. Go to lucindaresearch.com. And if you want happy sleep secrets, go to lucindagift.com, and that'll give you the PDF.
we'll make sure to put those in the show notes. And
I hope that's useful.
Thank
I
you.
really respect your audience. Caregiving for others. What more noble way is there to spend our days? Yes.
Thank you, Lucinda. And I look forward to hearing more about this subject. And I so appreciate the time you took to speak with me today. So have a wonderful day. And
very good meeting with you, Deborah.
Good sleeping tonight for everybody.
Yes, for all of us.
Thank you for joining me today on The Caregiving Secret. You can dive deeper by picking up a copy of my pamphlet, Non-Negotiables for Caregivers. Go to my website, deborahgreenhut.com, and click on the link for Non-Negotiables for Caregivers. Until next time, keep sharing, keep caring, and remember, you're not alone on this journey.